Greetings, I am Tom Earl. On this week's episode, I interview Michón Neal as we talk about representation, identity, and imagination. Check it out. Greetings, I am Tom Earl. Welcome to the celebration. As you know, this is my year of courage. We know you could be anywhere, so the fact that you are here sharing your greatest gifts, your time, and your energy means the world to us. We hope you know that you are loved just as and where you are. I am very excited for this week's guest. We've been going back and forth for maybe a year, and we finally made it happen. Michón Neal is this week's guest. How's it going, Michón?
Hello, going well. How are you?
Wonderful. You mind if I share your beautiful bio with the good folks listening?
Oh, please do.
Michón Neal is an autistic, BlaQueer, impossible alien, othergender dragon. What tattoos trees with the queerest, most sinister ink and hurts all over all the time. Z is a public speaker and accountability counselor at Postmodern Women, sensitivity editor and founder at Cuil Press, and trauma-informed Domme, community of care and educator at the Metanoiac portal. Yes, indeed. I love it. I've been reading your bio many times, and I've finally put together this: tattoos, trees with the queerest, most sinister ink.
Mm-hmm.
That's ink on paper, right?
Yes, ink on paper.
Okay, I was like, are you a tattoo artist? Okay, I love it.
Yes, I had to dress that up a little, and I just I believe I came up with that actually. One day I was in a lot of pain, and I just kind of just described it that way. And I'm like, you know what? That's exactly what I do. Yeah. Writing is awesome.
What do you like to write? What are you called to write? Where do you spend your time?
So my first love is fiction, what I call Cuil fiction. And I've been writing that for almost 20 years now. And I also write some nonfiction, but it's usually to expand upon and explore the ideas that I bring up in my Cuil fiction. So very interrelated there. Yeah.
And what's Cuil fiction?
Cuil fiction is it is speculative fiction. It's a mix of science fiction, fantasy, romance at times, and yet it's as much about dealing with trauma and healing, and most of the people featured are the ones that you don't often get to see. So the default tends to be, the average white guy, basically. Cuil fiction centers the experiences and stories of the disabled, Black people, intersex people, trans people, and things like that. Most often all bound up into one person. And there are, fantasy creatures that we often see, like vampires and, and zombies and witches and things, weirdly thrown in with this super high-tech world, this super high-tech background or something. So it's very strangely done, and it will be like nothing you've ever read before.
I'm on the edge of my seat every night before I go to bed. I read for about an hour some sort of fantasy, science fiction, something that takes me somewhere else. So I'm getting excited.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, I guess, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy meets Doctor Who, but with very, very different people as the main characters.
And so that brings us to, you're a sensitivity editor and founder at Cuil Press. So you founded it, and you're a sensitivity editor.
Yes. So I wanted to see more like it. I knew other people had to be writing stories like that. And so founded it, and the sensitivity editing basically ensures that whoever if you don't hold the same identity as the people you're writing about, that you're not being inaccurate or harmful or things like that. So
If you don't mind sharing, could you take us a little bit on the origin story? Where did it come from where you wanted to write about this, and then it became, not only do I want to write about this, but I want to found an agency that distributes stories and empowers writers to share that? How did that evolution take place?
So it began, ironically enough, I hated English class every time I took it. And they would have us journal every day, and we were supposed to write about our lives. My home life, most people even today cannot handle it. I basically need a trigger warning for my entire existence in a lot of ways. So I started writing a story, and it grew. And within the next few years, I had created an entire series and was starting to write other things. And I loved it. And it was nice because not only did I finally see somebody like me reflected and represented in media, but I got to tell it my way, and I got to ask questions and follow things to conclusions that more normative people don't usually get to do. And it was also a form of healing for me. So as I wrote it, these were, it's as much philosophical as it is just something for fun or silliness. So there are elements of all of that in there. And then I always knew I wanted to eventually just create that same multiverse like everywhere else for other people to experience. So I wanted it, it was always intended to be built so other stories can take place in the Cuilverse, as I call it. Somewhere there's room for it somewhere. Not all Cuil fiction takes place in the Cuilverse, but it can. And so I formed this company as a way to tell people, okay, we want your stories. We don't want to. Our goal is not to market to the mainstream because they already have, they have so many, like, infinite numbers of stories. They've seen themselves time and again and reflected in all sorts of ways. This is for the ones who get left out, who've never seen themselves. And so we know there are other writers out there, and eventually we want to welcome comic artists and poets and, turn at least a few of these into films or movies or cartoons or something. So it's meant to be a whole, eventually, experience. Virtual reality is something I want to, create. It basically step into the shoes of someone you may not understand very well, and see what it's like to live as them and make those choices. So, that's the whole, that's the whole tale with that.
And do you have, are there books published from the press that we can read and engage in?
Yeah, so we currently have 2 books published. The first one is The Bargain, which was written by Jess Mahler, who also happens to be one of the other founders. And it deals with trauma and BDSM and elves. So it's magical. It's amazing. And it's really hard for me, especially to find books about people's relationships that really speaks to me and really grips me. So I loved it, and really looking forward to the second book whenever she gets around to writing it. And then the second book that we published is Fantasy Twist, and it is an anthology with many different stories, with the sort of usual tales, the kind of that Disney took and turned around and things like that. So some of it's familiar, some of it's not so familiar, but the point was to tell it in a way that it's never been told before, with people that have never appeared in those stories before. And so we just have this wonderfully diverse and queer and really powerful approach to it. And so oh my gosh, there is one of the stories is called Cold Hearted, and it's about, you know, the kind of creepy old neighbor trope. And just the way that it got resolved is just like, it was a delight to read that one. I was like, we absolutely are including this one because it's, so, and right now we just finished taking submissions for queering romance. The title will change. I have a very interesting title for that, but as soon as I get done sensitively editing all of the stories, that will be released. Yeah. So we wanted like asexual and aromantic tales of, epic friendships. We wanted healthy romance, and we wanted, just queering it up in different ways. So yeah, it's fun stuff.
What are kind of, for people who are aspiring writers or writers and are trying to include diverse characters in their books, what are some things that you would want them to be aware of with your sensitivity editing expertise?
So the language they use, voice is a huge part of that. There are a lot of Black people will refer to code switching. There's a way that we talk when we are surrounded by people who are not Black, and then there's how we interact and talk when we're all together, when we feel safer. And it's true for, I think, a lot of marginalized people. When they are more around people that kind of understand what they've been through and have gone through, they act a little differently. So yeah, being able to make that person feel authentic is something I think that's really, really hard to do. A lot of folks usually have to rely on stereotypes. So I'd say like reading and watching things that are created within that culture and kind of picking that up, and watching many different things, and not just one kind of show or anything. Like, watch their cooking shows, or read their biographies, or, and things like that. So to get a bigger picture of who they are. And that really helps. And the sensitivity editing itself, can help because it kind of fills in the gaps for, you can research so much, but sometimes there's still things that you may not know. So if you go and find a sensitivity editor that is from whatever population or identity or thing or experience that you want to write about, it can really help, because they can let you know, okay, well, this really happens to us, or this is what we would do here, or things like that. So to make your story richer, and it'll better represent the people that you're writing about. Yeah.
That's wonderful. I appreciate you sharing that knowledge that you have with us.
Yeah.
Before we jumped into the interview, I had clarified some words in your bio that I'm guessing people also are curious to know.
Yes.
So, for instance, we used Z as a public speaker and accountability counselor. Can you share Z as a pronoun? What does that mean for you?
Right. So Z in here is, oh goodness, I know it's some other language. It's not, I forget. It may or may not be Swedish, and sorry if I'm getting that wrong. It's been a while. But it's a pronoun just like he, she, and they. I have personal issues with people using they, them for me when it's as my default pronoun. And it's usually used by people who are agender or who are non-binary, or who are multigender, or things like that. And I think I like using it because I am one of by all accounts, I should not exist. I have, there are so many different marginalized aspects about my existence, from being left-handed to being autistic and intersex and Black, and all of that mixes in a really weird way. So I like Z because it both reminds me of that otherness, and I think it's more conscious when other people use it. They have to really think, okay, yes, there are all these other genders or these, these other experiences of it. And so it always kind of stuck. I always kind of go for the most unique or out there thing. And like I said, I have because usually when a Black person is they or them, it's not good. They or them, or even for like queer people and things, it can be really othering. And so I don't want, I wanted to feel like I had more control over, just that whole process and that language and things. So, yeah.
If I could just ask a clarifying question, just to make sure people aren't misunderstanding, because we've had other guests who are Black and use they and them pronouns.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So are you saying like you wish they didn't use that, or?
No. So I am, I'm fine with, because each of us has to basically decide for ourselves so this is just my personal relationship with they and them. And, I'm already othered in so many other ways. And just also as a writer, it's very hard to use they, them with multiple people. And it's very frustrating. But yeah, so I don't mind other people using it. And also because usually English is not our original language anyways. So for me, it's people doing the best they can. I just happen to find this one. Some people use others or have created their own. So it's whatever they do to reclaim their sense of themselves. As long as it's not, hurting anyone or anything, then that's totally fine. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you for sharing that with us. And we always have folks follow up after the episode and often arrive at the conclusion, sort of what you're saying is that the language we have is inherently designed to only say these are the correct way to express gender. What I've heard from people is we're just searching for a way to exist within, even in the language being oppressed.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And that's why I use the term also other gender, because it is Black specific, because even being, even though it contains elements of, terms and things that other people use, terms like neurogender or transgender or non-binary or genderqueer, it's still a vastly different experience when you're Black and all those other things. And so it's really interesting, and the process is different. And even whether or not you transition can depend on, race has to factor into it. So, yeah.
And so we've broken it all down, so then what's the dragon part?
The dragon, because I was born in the year of the dragon, and often I feel like I am too big or too large, or I it's kind of like the TARDIS in a way. I'm bigger on the inside. There are all of these different aspects to me. There are all these experiences, and they shouldn't all fit in one person or in one body. And as I've gotten older and my disabilities have worsened a bit, I've gotten a little clumsier. And so it's also an inside joke in that one of my clumsiest characters, his real form is a dragon. So it's kind of a nod to all of that. And I feel really, I feel like the dragon is really misunderstood as well. People are always going and trying to kill him and steal their treasures, like, oh my gosh. But they're also these creatures that are associated with, with truth and light and things. So, I've tried to basically rewriting the story from the dragon's point of view, and let's see how they feel about it. Yeah.
One interesting parallel that comes to mind too is one of my favorite playwrights, Alicia Harris. She
Yeah.
wrote a play called We Be Dragons, and she was telling
Mm.
me that throughout history, she found that they use dragons as code word for Black people as well.
Yes. Yeah. See, that's amazing. Cause that's something that I didn't know. I know there's the, with Asian culture, there's supposed to be like the dragon lady who's supposed to be really intimidating, but yeah, that's interesting. And I would also love to check that out because it just sounds amazing. But yeah, thanks for sharing that with me.
Definitely, I'll connect you with her, and I apologize in advance, Alicia, if I had butchered your explanation in any way. So let's talk about the Educator at Metanoiac portal. And am I pronouncing this word correct?
Metanoiac.
Metanoiac, there it is.
Yes. Not yet, sweetie. So that is, it's the one spot where I can bring together all of my projects and create spaces for different conversations to happen. So when you originally reached out to me, we were discussing, we were talking about, I think it was when the Me Too stuff was really picking up. So we were talking about rape culture and all of that, and what men's role in healing was, or in addressing it was. And so the Metanoiac portal, it mentions Cuil fiction. It also breaks down more about my services through like Postmodern women and things like that, and runs a few reparational projects or like safety net projects for people who are marginalized. And then there are these spaces that I create. And a lot of them are to deal with different kinds of trauma. And for a lot of them, the spaces are divided. Some of them are divided by race, so that okay, everybody that wants to talk about, for instance, like non-monogamy, can all be in a group together. But then there's also a set space for Black and Indigenous people to just talk amongst each other about, okay, these are my experiences with non-monogamy, and these are my traumas and things, and work through that. So it's nice, and it's the same thing with like rape culture, because there is so much toxicity there, especially with among men, whether they're cis or trans. And so just like the other spaces, they are, there's a group for everyone to be able to talk about their experiences. And then there are different groups for people of different races or different kinds of queerness to talk about those topics in particular. So they can break down how it manifests there, because like, even though the oppression is all one thing, it is expressed differently by different people depending on their experiences and their identities and things. And so, yeah, the Metanoiac portal is basically it's where you can find everything that I'm working on and doing, the people that I'm working with. And like I said, space for especially for other people who are trauma informed as well, to come in and guide people through, whatever they need to work on, basically. And it's nice because it's enclosed. You don't have to worry about getting banned or, randomly just for saying something that's true. And you don't have to worry as much about, trolls and things getting in the conversation, or, and I do my best to maintain the privacy of everyone there. So basically, if you want to know things that I have done, or even language that I've created, or the books I'm working on, or just me being silly, it'll be there, and it's nice.
And so this is an online space.
Yes, it's an online space. It is. There is this platform called Mighty Networks. Which, weirdly enough, even though it is in competition with Facebook, it's advertised there a lot, and that's how I found out about it. So Facebook actually helped me. Oh my gosh! But it's really wonderful. You can basically create your own site. So it can be a social media site, it can be a business site, it can be just a communal thing. It can literally serve any purpose that you need it to do. And a lot of the features and things are built into it. Even though it takes a little bit of a learning curve, once you learn it, it's very intuitive how it all fits together, and you don't have to worry about, doing all of the coding or the designing or anything like that yourself. It's just, it all flows together, so you can plug in, all of your information and make it to suit your own needs, which is great. So yeah, even the courses and things like that are on there, and they're connected to, to your main site that you create. So it's really, really useful and really wonderful and really refreshing in a way. I think also helps with focus, because once you're in a particular network, that's all you see. You can switch between them. But yeah. So.
That's wonderful. What was the pathway, or kind of going back to the origin story of where you started to be able to name and express for yourself, your own self, and then move into being able to facilitate processes for people to be able to do the same for themselves?
Yeah, so it definitely started with writing the Cuil verse, because eventually I wrote my own story. I'm still writing my own story. That's the other thing that's strange about it, is that I'm one of the main characters, or I'm kind of there. I pop up from time to time. Everybody wonders what I'm doing there. And so there's this interesting dynamic between me and the characters. And it's like, because I'm basically their god in a way. So a lot of them fight back against that power in different ways. And, some of them try to get me to do like other things or change things. And I'll be like, you know what, I'm just writing it, like, and basically I'm kind of in the background doing all of this weird shit that nobody knows what I'm up to or why I'm there. And there are a few stories that take place in my universe, so of my actual life, but very highly fictionalized versions of them. So it's basically the truth. You can see what happened to me by contrast. So the things that I'm writing about are things that I wish happened, or internal processes that I was going through while the external stuff was happening. And so just through that exploration and things like that, I found out different things about myself, what I liked, what I didn't like, and different, just being able to explore all of that in darkest corners and just confront a lot of different kinds of trauma and things. And when I went to college, I started discovering the actual language that I came to use later on. And it was great, because my major was basically studying everything and anything to do with what makes humans human, basically. So I got to pick up a lot of that and look through each different discipline on how they define us and what they think. So it's like, not only am I getting this information, but I'm getting more of a picture of how they gather this information and how each discipline's strengths and weaknesses, and using it all together. And then, of course, just finding other great queer writers, and have always been I've always studied, a big researcher just on my own. I love to study. So just finding other writings or other either nonfiction or sometimes fiction too, and being like, okay, yes, this is awesome. I'm going to take this little piece here. And some terms I wanted to be a linguist once upon a time. So I really like to mess with words, and go back and study the history of them and put them together in different ways. So you'll see a lot of the language and the ways that I write is very idiosyncratic and very, very unique. And I create a lot of language and a lot of terms, because a lot of these concepts have not been voiced yet, or they haven't been put together yet. So, yeah. So I started creating some. So. Yeah.
That's wonderful. It reminds me of when people talk about the colonization of the imagination, and that
Yeah.
being a space we need to decolonize. It starts with the imagination.
Yes, yes, it really does. It really does. The imagination is it's so overlooked. And because there's a lot of people who say that, they don't really get the arts or anything like that, and they don't get why representation matters and things, but it matters because that's usually the first encounter you're going to have with people or experiences that are not your own. We don't have to go out to the jungle and stare at a tiger in the face anymore. We can read about it. We can see.
Thank God.
So, yeah, the point is we don't have to just learn from our own mistakes anymore. We can learn from other people's, and we can also learn from their experiences. So if you're getting the same kind of picture of certain types of people over and over again, that's going to change how you think about them. Because the funny thing about the mind is it literally cannot tell the difference between what's real and what you imagine. So when you imagine something and you see it, over and over again, it stays. So even if on the surface you don't think that you believe something, it'll still get played out somewhere because it's in there. And so changing the story and changing the narrative, or providing other perspectives is so vital and important. And the imagination, that's how we invented all of this stuff in the first place. Humans didn't used to be able to fly, and instead of changing our bodies, we just built a bird around us. Took off. Like it's amazing. We find other ways through things, and our imagination that's what it's there for. We don't really get the same instincts or things that other animals get, but we have that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful that our good friend Moman, the brilliant poet, writer, philosopher, all of those things, connected us. And I reached out to him and asked what question he'd like me to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
So Moman's question is, when was the first time you realized you were poly?
And probably with my very first set of crushes, actually. For me, polyamory is like my orientation. It's inborn, it's inherent, just like being queer in other ways is, and just like my gender is. And so I never had crushes or squishes actually on just one person. It was always several people of like all different kinds of genders. So, and every time I imagine my future, like I didn't think of, most people, they're like, okay, I'm going to grow up and get married to one person, and then we're going to have these kids, and we're going to, live in a house, and it's going to be just us, and, get rid of the parent and all that. For me, I always imagined living with all of my friends, and some of them I'd be physically close with, and some of them I wouldn't, and it wouldn't matter, but we'd all just, be together, and it would be amazing. And, and for a very long while, and even still now, I don't quite get the one-itis that a lot of people have. I mean, I know it's told to us over and over again, especially in the media, and that just never made sense for me. And I didn't have a term for it before, so I used to refer to myself as being unchained, because there's just this aspect of like coupledom that seemed just really too heavy. I'm like, there are like how many billions of people in the world, and you want me to pick one? Like, I want to know I want to know everyone. For me, like knowledge of self and others is one of my love languages, and it's a shame because it's not recognized as one of the official love languages. But sharing knowledge about myself and learning about others is how I show people that I love them. So for me, whenever I was partnered up, I'd say I want to be able to know, people organically. I don't want to restrict it arbitrarily, like that. Just like, why would you limit it? I want to know them however however it works out, whether that includes, sex or things like that, it doesn't matter. But I want to have that. I need to be able to have that option. So it's always kind of been there, and that's I love Mo Man. Oh my gosh! So that's an excellent question.
Well, I appreciate you answering. That means a lot to us. Thank you. So you might have heard me say at the beginning that this is my year of courage.
Yes.
And
yeah.
the intention for that is, I think we have, like a lot of things, a stereotype about what courage looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So throughout the interviewing of my awesome guests, I wanted to just hear what courage is to a variety of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so for you in your life and your experience, what is courage?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for me, courage is being able to feel everything you feel, even if that's like deathly afraid, and still making the right choice anyways, still doing what's right because it's right. And I think a lot of people think it's, about a lack of fear or something like that. I've been absolutely terrified, but it's still being able to go through it and, work through all that anxiety and everything that comes up, and making it better just because it's, it's supposed to be that way, and still going anyways. Or feeling your worst, like when a lot of people feel low, and even myself, there've been times I did not want to be alive, and still finding something or anything to hold on to go forward. Like, even if it's just, okay, everything sucks, but sometimes the only thought that would help me is that, okay, well, dying won't fix it, so you might as well get up and get back to it. And I think that that kind of quiet, and there's that one saying that it's not what people see you doing, but it's what you do when you're alone or when nobody sees you. And I love that Missy from Doctor Who actually said something really similar to that. So she said, basically, I'll be your friend without, what was it? Without hope. Without something else, and then without reward. And that's really important because, she upheld that. And I think courage is a lot about who you are and what you do when nobody's watching, or when no one can help you, or things like that. So it's almost a really private thing in a way. And, because most people don't get to see it. So.
Yes. I love that you're the first person to really articulate the private aspect of courage, to name that. And it's so powerful. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Since you've brought it up a couple times, what's your favorite Doctor Who rendition? Who do you think's done it best?
Oh, goodness. I initially was all David Tennant, and just nobody else could even, I was frustrated with the ones that came after. But I really think Peter Capaldi's Doctor was the one that most resonated with me on a personal level. Like, I loved it, and it was really great, but it was the first time we really got to see, this is what's going on in his mind. This is how he thinks. This is how he operates. And these are the choices that he has to make. He was actually deferring to his last companion a lot, and saying, hey, you tell me what you need, and I'll go and do it. This is your planet. This is your world. Like, and so that, I think he grew so much. It started off a bit shaky, and I wasn't sure how it was going to go, but he just stole it. There's something about, you can tell he was like a theater actor, because they're so big with it. And I love that. And it worked really well for Doctor Who, because, he's supposed to be very, very alien, So David Tennant was, I think, always meant to be the Doctor, but Peter Capaldi is like the Doctor. He's the vulnerable Doctor. That was really powerful. I'm also looking forward to the first female Doctor, even though I wish it could have been, like, could we have just made it a Black woman or a Black non-binary person, or I don't know. So, but I'm sure it'll be great anyways, because it's a show where learning is a part of it. They do change, and that's something that Cuil fiction is supposed to be about. It's like, yeah, even if you start off kind of like when, like the Christmas special. So when Peter Capaldi met the first Doctor, and it's, and he's like, oh my gosh, so embarrassed because he's like this sexist, like, oh my gosh. And it was great. And I love the way they did that. So just having that, confronting oneself and growing from that and learning from that. So, yeah.
I appreciate that. I just want to thank you so much and honor the time and energy and all the work that you're doing in the imagined space, the real space, the online space to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, and that you shared it with us here today. So thank you so much for that.
Sure. And thank you for having me on. And I'm so glad that we were finally able to do this. And it's been marvelous and great. And I love the questions are so thoughtful and just like, yes. Okay. Yeah. So it's kind of a relief because, yeah. Oh my goodness.
I appreciate that. And I'll slide the money into your PayPal for that compliment. Not his way.
But yeah. oh goodness.
How, where, and if you'd like, can folks connect with you, be a part of your world, thank you, join the Metanoiac portal, all of that kind of stuff?
Right. So you can actually do a lot of that just through the portal itself. It is subscriber based, and but it's reparational, what I call my reparational business model, in that if you can afford more and if you come more from a place of privilege, you can pay a little more to cover somebody else's that either can't afford it or is just oppressed in so many other ways it doesn't make sense to ask them for, so there are different levels. And what's really wonderful is that even though some of the folks who are multiply marginalized, they don't have to pay, they still want to, because it's just, there's really like no other space like it. So I'm usually on there from day to day. There's, you can private message me through there. If you just want to tip me, there are ways to do it. I have, you can do it at, PayPal.me/the Cuil Effect Project. And there's, if you look me up, you'll probably find a lot of, I should be the first person that comes up. Sometimes Michón from The Walking Dead comes up, which is awesome, but yeah. But yeah, I have Facebook pages. I am less active on Facebook, and more of like, if you want to go in depth, the Metanoiac portal is where to go. If you just want to kind of get familiar with what I've worked on in the past or anything, Facebook is fine for that. I'm on, Twitter, Instagram, all of that. But you can usually find links to that either on one of my sites or within the Metanoiac portal itself. So,
is it the metanoiacportal.com?
It's the metanoiacportal.mn.co. And I know it's a little different, but I kind of like that. And then, so and Cuil Press is just regular cuilpress.com, and Postmodern Woman is just postmodernwoman.com. So those are simple. So if you can't remember the whole long Metanoiac portal or don't know how to spell it, just look for me on one of those sites, and there'll be links to that as well.
Is Michón Neal a website?
MichónNeal.com is a website. It's for the sensitivity editing that I do outside of Cuil Press. So so if you just type that in, you'll find that, and you'll also find links to my other sites as well, even if you don't need some work yourself. But,
okay, cool.
All right.
The folks listening know I already got you. Tomrell.com/Michón, Michon, Tomrell.com/Michon, 3 times the charm. Tomrell.com/Michon. We're going to have every single link just mentioned in one clickable location, plus show notes, all of that good stuff. If you're listening on the podcast and want to see the video, if you're on the video and you want to listen to the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, any of that. We'll all have that there for you. And, once again, just want to thank you. This has been such an honor, and also want to thank the children in the house for giving us the chance to, talk for 45 minutes.
I know, right? It is a miracle. Oh my goodness. Oh, I also, so one thing I almost forgot to mention. So I just started a podcast as well. So you can find out about it from inside the portal, but if you like to listen to stuff, I am at anchor.fm/integrated non-monogamy. So yeah, you can find me there, which will also have links to stuff. So yeah. And thank you for, for including the links on your site as well, because that's really useful. So.
Yes, of course. Anchor's a great app. So great one to listen to, folks. I always like my guests to get the last thought. So what I'd like to do is, what would you like to invite those listening to do, to think, to consider, to be? What's your invitation?
Yeah. So, I think describing this as a year of courage is just so perfect and so apt, because a lot of messed up stuff is happening, and a lot of things are going wrong, and it's been so hard for a lot of people. But you're not alone, and I hope that you can reach inside and find that courage in those, especially in those most private moments when you think nobody will understand or that nobody cares or things like that. And I urge you to keep looking. People like to say that the online world isn't real, but for people like me, it's literally been a lifeline, because it can connect you to others who understand your experiences and, who had the courage to get to these points today. But just, stay with it. And I hope that you also find rest, and I hope that your rest is actually restorative. That's what I like to say to people, because not all rest is equal. So,
nope. They got apps to tell you now. Well, wonderful. I appreciate that invitation and everything that you shared with us.
Yeah.
I want to encourage our listeners once again to check out all of the wonderful things Michón's doing. And I'm going to definitely check out those books. So I appreciate that so much.
All right. Sure. Thank you.
My pleasure. And to all those listening, as always, we're wishing you peace and blessings. Thank you. One more thing. I'd love to continue the conversation. Feel free to join me at tomearl.com/join. Subscribe below, or let's connect on social media. Tom Earl Artist. Thanks again for watching.